All right, and there we go. Now we're live.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. My name is Soni. I am here in Nashville, Tennessee. Excited to be here with you, talking with you a little bit about the quilting module. And I've got two great educators with me today to help me out with this. So, Meredith.
Hello, everybody. Most of you know me. My name is Meredith. I am one of the mySewnet educators, and I am in the Dallas area today. So we're sort of all in different areas, which it's fun. We don't do these very often like this, Soni. So it's always a joy to get to have that person to converse with.
And Carly.
Hey everyone, I'm Carly. I'm a singer educator here in Nashville.
So we are excited to be here with you guys because last time I had the opportunity to be here. And by the way, in the comments, in the chat, please let us know where you're coming from. We love to see that. We see from Ohio and from Canada, from St. John in Canada. And so we'd love to know where you guys are coming from. So please say, we've got Indiana, all sorts of things. So last time I had the opportunity to be here with you all, we talked about the new quilting module for mySewnet. And so that was kind of the start, the kickoff of it. Well, guess what? We now have a great new update. And that update has to do with what Carly's standing behind, the Memento. A lot of you maybe had ideas or questions about how do I use my Memento with the software? Well, guess what? Now it's integrated. So we're really excited about that. And I know, Meredith, you and Carly both have been working a lot with this and been doing some projects on it. So what I wanted to do, and also two different perspectives, I think, right, on what's going on with the quilting software and this integration. So I'm going to start, Meredith, with you because you are, I always say you're a quilter, but you always say something else. So I'm going to let you go ahead and get started this.
Yes. So I say I'm a quilter. I am not. I quilt and sew with some amazing quilters, and I am not near to their level at all. That's why I don't consider myself an expert, but I consider myself a seasoned quilter, I would say. So I do more smaller form ones, so like baby blankets, lap blankets, things like that is mainly what I do. But I do quilt. So this is with the Memento, it's taken, and I've enjoyed cutting. Most people don't enjoy physically using a rotary blade. I find it relaxing. I know I'm weird, but some people don't, and they don't want to take that time to manually cut everything. So Memento gives you that ability to cut everything quickly. And I actually timed myself manually cutting versus Memento cutting, and the Memento cut my time down by about 20-25%. So like time for me, I'm a young mom, time for me is everything. And if it's saving me some time, I'm all for it. So I have done a couple different things. I've done more than a couple things, but a couple things to show you today of some of the quilt blocks that I have physically cut on Memento and been able to sew them. So this first one I have here, this is, Soni was like, make like a hot pad. And I was like, well, I want to make one for my like casserole thing. I want something that I can leave on my table and but then it's still decorative. So I have Insul Bright in it, so it's good for when I pull something out of the oven. But all of this was cut on the machine, and there's triangles, and cutting them on that bias is not always the easiest, I know. So Memento is able to do that for me with very little effort. Like it was super easy to do. And all of my points and everything lined up. And this is pretty basic here. There's just a little 4-pats and then the triangles. But on this other one that I've done, this is
Meredith, before you put that away.
Oh.
Did you embroider on those little pieces in the middle?
Yes. So I took this to my machine and I projected and I just put these. I think I'm going to go back and do some straight line quilting too on it. But yes, these were a little bland to me. So I added in a little blue flower to sort of match everything. And so it's a great giving you that ability to do that.
Yeah, I just had to. I thought that. Yes. I think that's really cute.
Yeah, no, thank you. And so this next one that I've done, this is like a so this was something I just did on my own. I put the 2 blocks in here, but this next one I'm going to show you is actually one that's a project that's already in there that you can do on your own. So this is 4 blocks. This is more of a runner, and they're all the same block. But what I want to point out with this is I am not the best at doing triangles and getting them those points and everything lined up. But y'all, I have not been more accurate than I was with doing, I'm trying to show y'all some of my points and things like that, as I was with this one. The accuracy when you're sewing something on the bias can be difficult sometimes, but with Momento cutting it just sewed together seamlessly. No pun intended, but it really did. And so with this one, I didn't do any extra quilting, but I did add a little endless border along the top there, if you can tell. So this will be a good little summer one that I'm going to put out across one of my tables.
Love that. Meredith, those are so cute. And I know you were having fun, and you were saying that the triangles, and we're going to talk about the triangles here in a little bit. So Carly, you, I know, have been, I see this stuff beside you. You've been doing a little things, but you have a different perspective than Meredith, right?
Yes, I am brand new to quilting. So I only started quilting just a couple months ago. I'm more of a garment sewer, and so I really had to dip my toes into the world of quilting. And prior to using this software, I honestly struggled using the rotary cutter and measuring out. It was all new to me, and this made kind of a work smarter method for me, and I was super glad that this came about when it did. So I haven't made actually a full quilt myself yet, but I've been playing around making smaller blocks and kind of different types of projects. So I made this denim quilt block on this jacket, as well as this one, which I turned into a little drawstring bag. And I made a little matching block that I turned into a pet bandana. But just kind of to show, you can cut out a variety of materials. This is with denim. And then this is a really small quilt block that I made that I put on a hat. And these tiny, tiny shapes were all cut on the Memento, which these are pretty hard to cut by hand.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. And what we're going to start with, and Carly, I know for you being new, we've been helping each other a little bit, right? So I know that cutting knot with the rotary cutter, you about threw me out of the room when I started out with you.
And I will say these versus the first block that I made by hand are way better. The first one I made was a little uneven. I don't know where I went wrong. I'm sure my rotary cutter slipped or my measuring skills weren't the greatest, but I definitely can tell a difference of how accurate these are versus my first try at it.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. And so I've been noticing as we're kind of looking and people are showing, Meredith, they love what you're doing. Carly, lots of fun. I cannot take credit for the quilt behind me. I can say that one of our other educators, Emily McGinley, made it. So it's a beautiful quilt behind me. My little one, I'm going to talk about that we did before. So so what we want to do, we want to show you in the software. Okay, so we're going to jump over to the software here in just a moment. And what we're going to do is I want to show you a couple things. So this is the new look of the kind of the software, how we get going with the crafting and quilting both right here. Okay, so both are right in this area. Now, before I move on into quilting, last time we talked, everybody, I could not tell you where to change from inches to millimeters and back. It was like in a different place. So what I want to share with you real quick is if you do go into settings and go into the app settings here, this is where for crafting and for quilting, you can change into metric or basically English systems. So this is where you do it. So just real fast, go back again. It's in the settings and then the app settings. So just so you all realize that's where that is. So I think that's a good thing to know. So let's go ahead. Let's jump into quilting. All right. So we're just going to jump into quilting. And what I'm going to do is I am going to go ahead and load a quilt layout, and we're going to make one block today. So we're just going to start with one block. And that block that we're going to do, so I'm going to load a preset quilt layout. And the 1x1 is like the block that what Carly did on the bag and on her jacket. See the 1x2 here. This is the one that Meredith did for her little thing for her casserole dish. And Meredith, what was the one that you did? What size was it that you did for your table runner? Was it the 1x4?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is the one she did for the table runner. So, you know, you have a lot of options for some basic stuff. So I'm going to go ahead, stick with the 1x1. I'm going to click OK and bring us over into this area. Now, everybody, I do want to, oh gosh, I should never, I'm just one of those people. We've got people from California, from Canada, from the Netherlands, everywhere, from Germany even. So how exciting. Welcome, everyone. I should not have done that, but it really is cool to see everybody everywhere. So over here in the quilt properties, I do want you to realize that this will come up, the size of, this is the actual size of the whole quilt. And when we say the quilt, that means in this case, it's one block. So this is my block. The size of 16 inches, it does include 2-inch border on this side and 2-inch on every other side. So the block itself is 12 inches. The border is actually, you add 4 and that's where you get the 16. So I kind of wanted to make sure you guys knew that, right? So the block that we're making is a 12-inch block. We're just not going to put a border on it. All right. And then in the mySewnet Quilting, so we're in the mySewnet Quilting, the newest version, I am just going to click on the quilt block tab. And when I choose my quilt block, we still are working with, and this is what's kind of fun, is these are all the blocks that we have available today. And the Road to Oklahoma, that was the one that you actually were working with, right, Meredith, for the one table runner, and then you also did the Old Maid's Puzzle. Is that right?
Correct. The one with 2 blocks with the embroidered flowers on it was the Road to Oklahoma, and the other, the longer one was that one. Yes. Yep.
All right. So, and Carly, you did a lot with the Friendship Star, right?
Yes, the bag and the hat was the Friendship Star, and the denim jacket, I did the Ohio Star.
Okay, so that was this one. All right. Well, I'm going to choose the Friendship Star to get started here. And so there is our basic, you know, Friendship Star block, everyone. And with that, what I am going to do is we're going to change the colors to kind of match what Carly did on her little bag. All right. So I'm going to go to Quilt Design, and I do want to, well, let's get started with changing colors. And the first thing I want to do is I want to change the light blue. So the light blue pastel. Wow. I get going too quick, everybody. So the light blue pastel, I'm going to click on this, and I'm just going to show you what we've learned, because I want to change that to a white color. And then I'm going to click OK. So now that I've got, these were these internal blocks that were the light blue, right? Well, now if I come down and I say I want to change my white to a lime color, I want you to notice something. Because I originally changed that first color, everything changed color. And I think Meredith, you and Carly both said, and I've done this too, we've all done this, right? We changed a color to a same color that's in the block, and then everything changes.
Yes, I've done it quite a few times, actually.
Yep.
Yes.
And that's where, for any of you who are software people, we love undo and undo again. And so just realize that if you have to be have a little thought process here, right? So I'm going to change, let's go back, choose my design. And this time I'm going to change the white first. So you all on the chat here, does that make sense to you? What just happened there? All right. Hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully that you just got to make sure you're going in the right order. Okay. So now that I have the white changed to lime, I'm going to change the navy. Oh, thank you guys. I appreciate it. I am watching the comments and chat a little bit, so I appreciate that it's making sense to you. Thank you for responding on that. So now with the navy, let's go ahead and change that to purple. And then the last thing that we're going to change is we're going to change the blue pastel first to white. All right. So this actually now, this is how we want it set up. So it kind of makes sense for that. So I love this. And you know what, Meredith, I'm going to be a little bit of a pain today for you, but can you bring us back up on screen? And Carly, will you just point to your bag again? Where your bag? Yeah. Because this is what we're doing, everybody. I want you to kind of see, this is the block, but this is also the colors that Carly had chosen. So it's actually pretty cool to see from here. Now, if we go back to the software, that's what it looked like in the software before Carly cut it and sewed it together, right? So it is pretty cool to see the finished product and how we get there. So I think that's important. So now that we've got this here, I'm happy with it. Carly, are you happy with it?
Yes.
Carly's happy with it too. So now we are ready to cut and to check out what we've got going on. So that's when we're going to come up to the top, and this is our output tab. I want to make sure my seam allowance is in inches. It's 0.25, so that's a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I'm going to come back at the very end and show you guys where to find the decimal to fraction conversion chart. There's a great chart on the mySewnet page. So we're going to do that at the very end. But now just take my word for it, and you guys probably figured it out that that's your 1/4 inch seam allowance. And now let us make the quilt. And in this case, the quilt is our one block. We are not going to cut or worry about the border, right? We're just doing the block itself. And if you've not yet played around in this great quilting software, there's a lot of great things. This is your quilt assembly instructions. Shows you basically with the one block, if you were putting on the borders, this is how you would do that. Here are your block instructions. So this talks about how you put all of your block pieces together. And in the chat, everybody, please let me know if you have been working with the software or if you are kind of, just wanting to see what it does, or just give us a hint if you've been playing around with this or not, because I think this is really fun and it's great for new quilters because it really does help you go through all of this. So there's our instructions for the friendship star. And if by chance, let's say we are, so not yet, I see a couple people not yet working with this, so you're just checking it out. Up here, this talks about the quilt map. It's just one piece at this time, so this is just one set, one block. But the yardage also, if you look here, if you are cutting it by hand, so lots of experience, the quilting software new, so great. I'm so glad that we're getting a chance to show you a little bit more. So here we go with the layout. If I was cutting this with a rotary cutter, this is what I would follow, right? So this is how I would follow. I would cut my fabrics. It gives me the sizes, that sort of thing. It gives me everything that I need to know about how to cut this with the proper sizes. And again, if I'm using a rotary cutter and mat. But this is the new part, everybody. So this is the new part. See down here in this bottom corner, hopefully you're seeing where my mouse is, and I'm trying to make it very obvious. We have this little new icon that says send to crafting. When I send to crafting, you'll see here, this is the mat size that we're going to use today. And so Carly's, like I said, Carly is over at the Memento. We're gonna move over there in just a moment. But basically, here are my different mat sizes that I have available for the Memento. We are going to use the 12-inch by 24-inch landscape. And then here, what this is going to show me is here are all the pieces that will be cut and the different colors on the Memento. Okay, so that's going to show me all the different pieces. So now when I click next, this is, can you all see this? This is for my one block. It has all the different ways that it's going to cut, showing you the size of fabrics that you need for the cutting. And also, Meredith, you brought this up earlier, but basically the Memento now, it's not going to cut a triangle twice. It's going to actually use one line to cut both triangles. Isn't that right, Meredith?
Yes. So like wherever you see a line, that is one cut. It's not going to do two cuts, like where the squares of the two triangles meet, that vertical line in between the two. That line right there, it's only going to do that once. It's going to go up or down, and then it's going to go straight over to the next one. It's seamless how it all goes through. You're not having those double cuts anymore.
Yeah, which is very cool, because when we used to create them ourselves, they were double cuts, weren't they?
Yes, and you had to leave a little bit of space maybe so that they didn't overlap, or, that type of thing.
Yeah, so that's what helped speed it up too, right?
Yes. Soni, oh, sorry, go ahead. You're probably
no, go ahead.
That little square that's on point right there. Do we want to talk about why that is?
Yeah,
the way
please.
it is? Oh, sorry. I can talk about it, why it is the way it is.
Yeah.
So that little point that square is on point. And if you look at it in the block, it has to do with how the grain of the fabric goes. So the reason it's not turned like a normal square and it looks more like a diamond is so that it's cut accurately with the grain of the fabric, so that when you're sewing it all back together. Because I know I've had some people ask, well, why doesn't it just turn it and then reduce the waste and things like that? But there is a reason for it. And I'm so glad that they thought through all of that, so we don't have to think about it.
Yeah. Patricia also, she just said that. She said, for block 3, would you not save fabric if it's not on the diagonal? And you would save fabric, Patricia, but the thing is it would not be on grain. So if you choose that you want to save fabric instead of having it like this on grain, you can then create your own square and do it separately. Okay, so that would be something. And I'm going to go back just one moment here, because that's a great comment. So if you look in here in this star, if I did not want this on point, I could actually take the check away from that, and it would not cut that in the Memento. So when I click next, you'll see that it's gone away, and that way you could create your square otherwise, right? So does that make sense, guys, how that works?
If you wanted to fussy cut something too, Soni, and you didn't want to worry about getting it lined up with Memento, you could take that out and you could manually still cut it on point, but get that whatever your fabric is, or in the middle of that square.
Yeah, in the right spot.
Yes.
And Jamie just asked, do the measurements already include the 1/4 inch? And yes, it does. That is, you'll notice it says here, including seam allowance. So it does include that. So, all right. So now let's click next. Carly, are you about ready?
Yeah.
This is where we're going to send. And I love this little thing. Now it's in crafting. So it's kind of cool.
That little transition. It's really neat.
Yep. It's really fun that way. And here are all the different batches. So we have the purple, we have the white, we have the green, and I did choose to keep it on point for that, and then the blue. So those are all the different batches. This also is something that is new in the crafting, everybody, is that you can now see, you can see what your mat's going to look like and where to place your fabric on your mat. So that's also really cool. So the updates for both crafting and quilting are really quite wonderful. So Carly, I'm going to I'm going to let you take over. I'm going to be quiet for a while, and Carly's going to go ahead and do the cutting. So we're going to move over to Carly's camera now.
Are you sending it, or am I opening it?
I'm going to let you send it, Carly, because you know what? Sometimes Wi-Fi is wonderful, sometimes not so wonderful, and I just don't trust it on a live. So I'm going to let you go ahead and choose. Which batch are you doing, Carly?
I actually loaded up the purple color, and that was the first one that it loaded up for that mat. So I have the Zoom screen here. I'm just on my laptop right now, hitting start.
And while you do that, Carly, somebody asked, will the mats always have the same color that you choose for your fabric colors? And yes. And I love that we have that visual so that I'm not confused. Like if I know that I want those colors and that's what my fabric's going to be, then I'm not going to mix up my fabric or put the wrong fabric down for a specific cut and things like that. So I love that that's like that.
So now mine's cutting, and you can adjust the speed. I did it on the standard speed that it comes with, so it's a little slower. But if you wanted to touch it up a notch, you could.
I'm always fascinated, Carly and Meredith, for you as well, because it's, to me, this is like embroidery, right? I love to just watch how it cuts, where it cuts. It's actually pretty cool to see how, you know, it is just doing that one cut, that whole thing. I think that's really neat.
It's almost like if you put your pin down and you never pick it up, but you have consecutive lines as you're going through. So it's neat.
And Patricia just asked about, will this, you know, be on a replay? We will have this live put up on YouTube. So yes, Patricia, you will be able to see this again. So
yes, immediately afterwards, it's just already there. You don't even have to wait for it. And all of the past YouTubes that we have done on Momento or the machines or the software can be found directly on YouTube as well.
Now it's done cutting, and I'm going to hit close and eject mat. So I don't know if I should zoom in some for this part. But let me just one sec. I'm just going to zoom in a tad bit so you guys can see. Now it doesn't even look like it's cut right now, but it is. And so first you're going to pull up your excess fabric. You can see here's the main shapes. Stand behind it here. And so right now it just kind of looks like a long rectangle, but you can use a tool. It's a little Memento tool. And when you pull up your shapes, you want to make sure for the triangles you do it on the side away from the bias. But you'll see here how perfectly cut all of these triangles are.
that's fabulous, Carly. That's really great.
Hey, Carly, did you do anything to this fabric before you put it on the mat?
Yeah, so I first obviously cut it to the size of the mat, and then I use what's called a brayer. It's this little rolling tool right here, and you flatten it out to really stick it to the adhesive on the mat and get any air bubbles out or anything like that before you load it. So you want to make sure you definitely use your brayer and flatten it out so that way there's no wrinkles that pop up while it goes through the machine. But these are so accurate, and while we're cutting, if you were using a large mat and cutting a lot of shapes for a big quilt, you could walk away, grab some coffee, you know, prepare your next mat, maybe throw some laundry in the machine. So.
Did you use any starch or anything to give some stability to that fabric before you put it on there?
You can. I think I forgot to do that today, but that is a good tip. That also is helpful as well with getting
but there really is no need to do that, right,
you
Carly?
Don't have to. Yeah.
you don't have to do that at all. That's the beauty of how Memento cuts, is that using that rotary, you really don't have to starch or do anything like that. Certain fabrics you might want to a little bit, but really not much, right, Meredith and Carly, both of you?
Yeah.
I have another mat here that's loaded as an example. This is the largest size, 24 by 24. So you can see how much space that saved for that one smaller mat. But if you were doing a really big quilt, you could cut a ton of shapes at one time using a large mat like this.
That's great. And Debbie, I'm not ignoring your question about do not like to sew bias to bias. Is there any way to use this to not sew bias to bias? I don't know how you would do that with a triangle. I'm not sure. I think the only way you could do that is because a triangle somehow is going to be cut on a bias.
Yeah.
But if you are using squares, then as long as you don't have this square on point, then you could have straight to straight. I don't know if I answered your question, Debbie, so you might want to, if I didn't, please say it again. And you can certainly wash your fabric first, however you want to do that. I think, Jamie, it's okay to do that. And that 24-inch mat is great. So Meredith, go ahead.
I was going to say that was one of my biggest learning things as I would say an experienced quilter is sewing on the bias has been so much easier for me because I have those accurate cuts and it's not wonky or anything. Like my triangles on this one in particular just lined up near perfect. Like I've never been as accurate as I was with doing it with this when it cut on Memento. So definitely, Debbie, give it a try before you shy away from it, and I'm sure you will be pleasantly surprised how much easier it is. And I would love to hear specifically, Debbie, if that works out for you.
And Carly, you were going to say something. That's the only problem when there's three of us is we all want to share. So you wanted to say something a little bit.
Honestly, I forgot what I was going to say, but
all right. And Barbara, yes, it is the right side of the fabric up for this. So you're the pretty side up. Exactly.
Unless
okay.
Unless you're cutting and you're sewing, and we don't have that ability as far as I know to do it in this, but if you're sending individual shapes that you've created specifically in the crafting software, when you send that over, if you're doing your seam allowance line with one of the marking pens, you would want your fabric right side down so that those marking lines are on the back side. But that's not, it's different than sending it the way we're doing it today.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Thank you, Meredith. So we've got I don't know, Carly, I'm going to go back to the software here for a minute because I want to share with you something. But I don't know if you have an extra piece of fabric to help to show people how to put the fabric on the mat. So, well, I'm going to do a little bit on software. So you take your time, find a little fabric because I know that we've got some stuff going on. So I'm going to return back to the quilting software. You know, sometimes it's the little things. I love that little going from quilting to crafting part. And I'm going to cancel that and close. And this time, I don't know. I'm going to close that without saving. I don't know if any of you saw the first little quilting module live that we did. If you didn't, it's up on YouTube's, right, Meredith? We have that up on YouTube so people can check that out.
Correct. Yes, it's going to be it's going to be on the mySewnet specific YouTube page.
Okay. And so what I did was this little quilt here is what I actually started with. This was my first quilt I did in the quilting software. And what I would say is with this is a little different than what I just sent over, right? Because I sent over to Memento one block. This has really 3 different blocks within it. So we've got the corner block, we've got the diamond block, and then we've got the Ohio Star. So that being said, I've already got my colors changed. You know, I've already got all of this looking the way I want it to be at this point. I am now going to go ahead and I'm going to just do the output tab. I want to make sure that I'm at my 1/4 inch seam. All right. So make sure I'm at the 1/4 inch seam. And then I'm going to say make the quilt. And when I do make the quilt, here are, excuse me, my 3 different blocks. And each block has their own instructions. So, you know, the corner blocks are pretty straightforward, pretty easy. The diamond blocks also pretty straightforward. It's just showing you how to do it. The Ohio Star, a little bit more involved. So, you know, step-by-step instructions on how to put these blocks together. So I think that's kind of cool, is that it takes you step by step through all of that. But here's the thing. If I send this to crafting, I am going to have, I do again have 3 different blocks. When I click send to crafting, can you all see this? I thought this was pretty great. I've got a 12 by 24 inch landscape mat. That's the mat that Carly used to cut. If you look here on that mat, I cannot cut this piece on point, right? So I can't do this on point. It's telling me it doesn't fit on the selected mat. Select a larger mat or cut the piece manually. I think that's pretty darn cool. And so they have thought of that when the people who made the software went ahead and did this, because now, Jamie, you had mentioned that nice size mat, that 24 by 24 inch. Well, guess what? When I do and choose 24 by 24, that piece will fit on that mat. So isn't that cool how the software knows exactly what I need? And so here it's telling me, here are my pieces for that. Here are my pieces here. Everything will fit on this 24 by 24 inch mat. When I click next, check it out. It's going to show you all the different batches, and it does put your colors together. So the colors pieces for all of the different blocks are all together. I just think that's really, really great how they can do that, and how the software thinks of it. Now, I'm not going to, actually, I could do a quick send. I'm not going to have Carly cut all my craziness here, but you can see all the batches. So you can see how this will actually cut the different pieces and parts for you, right? And the different colors. So I think it's really pretty neat that way, how it works. It just basically, it'll let you do that. And Patricia, to, you know, what you said, you're asking about, you want to make a quilt using 9 blocks. Would one at a time, or take multiple fits to the mat? I mean, you can see here how if you're doing more than 1 block, it's actually going to fit things properly for all the blocks at once. Kathy, right now, she asked about the cost of the quilting software and the crafting software. Both of these are actually complementary with the basic software. So it is, I mean, there is no charge for quilting and crafting today. So that's also that's really a pretty fabulous thing. And I'll show you in a minute where to get there and how to get there. And moment to cut S. So do you see Wink of an Eye Crafts, Meredith? She's asking about SVG files.
Yes. So our software, when it spits out a design here, I'm going to switch back to
let's get back to everybody here.
When it spits out a design to the machine to cut, it puts it in a CCM format. But you can bring an SVG format in and it will convert it to what it needs to. So yes, the answer is yes, you can cut SVG files. You just open it up the same way. What it's going to ask you when you open it is, are you doing a print and cut? Are you doing a cut? Things like that. And I had somebody recently email me asking, hey, it keeps asking me for the registration marks and it can't find them. And what they had done was they had sent it via a print and cut, which means for like stickers and things like that. And that's not what they were wanting. They were just wanting to cut it. So if you don't have the option to just cut, you can send it to the software via the print and cut. And then down at the bottom, you're going to see the little ribbon film strip. You can delete the actual print part of that and just have the cut file. So that's a little workaround for that. But yes, that's probably more than what you needed, but that, yes, you can put SVG files in there. And I am going to be doing, and I'll talk more about it at the end, I'm going to be doing a 3-day live next week, actually, one of our little mySewnet camps we like to do. And it's going to be all about creating your own files, creating your own custom quilt pieces, using this. I'm going to go a little bit more in depth. It's a lot of what we're talking about now, using the quilting software and sending over and things like that. So if you guys do have time to play with it between now and next week, come with those questions, because I know we just came out with this update last week, and I know some of you are still getting it downloaded and getting used to it. But play with it this weekend. Come with your questions next week. We don't always have them where they're back to back like this, Soni, where people can quickly come with their questions and things like that. So bring those to me next week, and we'll get those answered as well.
Yeah, and the different fabrics, they do sometimes need different pressures. There is a test cut. I think, Meredith, you can go over that a little bit more next week.
Yeah.
But so I'm going to mess up the name, but you were asking about the different fabrics and different pressures. Yes, you do want to test. You want to be careful. And Jamie, we are using a rotary blade for this. And that's one of the cool things. And Momento comes with a rotary blade. So I think that is really quite wonderful. And so it's really good to do that. And now Carly's all set up to show us a little bit about how to load the mat, right? So
yeah, and I was just pointing to the rotary blade right here. I wanted to see that, but that's where it pops in. But I grabbed a smaller piece of green, which I could send the green one through. The good thing is that one didn't have that many shapes. So, first I just laid it down on here, and then I'm going to bray it out with my brayer. Get it nice and flat.
And Carly, I think it's important a little bit to let everybody know you're using a mat. It's a red colored mat. That does not come with the Momento. Why is it important that you're using that red colored mat?
Because this is a fabric mat. I don't know if you can read that right there in the corner. But there are several mats that are for other types of materials you can cut with the Momento, but the red ones are specifically for fabric. And then there's some other tools like this little guy here. I don't even know their correct name. I call it the little scraper that you can also kind of get out any air bubbles. So then when you're loaded, I'm going to first pop up my pinch wheels to kind of load it in. Make sure it's even with all the edges here. Put my pinch wheels back down. And then you can't really see the screen the way, all right, yes, you can, sorry. I'm going to hit load that. And then I can go ahead and send this green one also.
There are a few built-in, like, shapes, Angel asked. There are a few built-in shapes and patterns. More of that is actually within the software itself. Because the Momento doesn't have a lot of memory in it over here. So basically, and there's the rotary blade, by the way. Can you see it turning on the way left of the screen? It's pretty cool to see how that's going to work. Yeah. And then you can see it moving. So there it is. But so
I bumped up the speed a little bit this time, so we'll see.
But yeah, there we go. And so there are a few, but there's not a lot of them within the machine itself. It's mostly within the software. But great question. And with the quilting software today, it does save as the CCM file, which is only for Momento. So right now, Kathy, it is a Momento crafting software today. Or yeah, crafting software, excuse me.
So now you can see this is the square that was cut. And I did bump up the speed a little bit, and sometimes this does happen where it just catches a little bit, but you can use a little scissor and pull it up. That's why I like to go slower with the speed sometimes.
So Tina, what you're showing is just kind of what Carly just did, is you do have to mess around a little bit with the pressures. So it's okay if you are learning a little bit about this. And so using that playing with the pressure a little bit, I think is just fine.
I've had to do that often.
Just a little bit, I take it down, make it a little bit more, just by a little bit of 10. And then again, Meredith, your point, using the test cut as well. So, you know, it's always on a live like this that when you ask a question that we're not prepared, that we're not quite prepared for, it always happens that way. So it is just testing that a little bit more.
Yeah. But it does happen, and I've cut different types of materials, not just cotton, and it does take a little bit of adjustment. The Momento software gives you a good starting point, though, for the pressure and the speed. And to Carly's point, I don't change the speed very often, if at all. I don't know that I've changed the speed at all. I keep it where it's set. It's the pressure that I make those adjustments on. And to Soni's point, I do it 10 to 20 more or less as I go along. But yeah, they have gotten a lot of it pretty accurate from where it was at the very beginning, where I'm not having to really make many adjustments if at all. So it's great.
So there are our pretty colored line pieces as well. So all right. So Meredith and Carly, now I want to, what else have I missed? Because I do want to go into the mySewnet the web page to show you a little bit in there. But I think that, you know, we've kind of been answering questions as we've been going along. Is there anything that I missed that you guys want to share? Because you've been working with this a lot, and I love your samples and all the stuff that's going on.
The couple things I was thinking about, you definitely mentioned the squares that are on point, and just showing that not everything can be cut on the specific size mat that you have, that you may have to go with the bigger mat because of how the shape is, things like that. So,
and very well thought of in the software, how they've got that. It's super easy to do that.
Yeah, I think you've covered it all.
Yay. All right. Well, keep putting in questions as we're going along. We've got, you know, a couple things that, you know, trying to answer those as we've been going. But I am going to go back, and I do want to, actually, I'm going to minimize this and go into our mySewnet website. So in the mySewnet website, there is crafting, there is embroidery, there is quilting. Here's everything, the library and the studio. If you haven't been in to the mySewnet web pages lately, you really need to get in there and start playing around. Now with the quilting, just by the way, if the quilting software, as Meredith said and Carly said, and I said this, there is a new version. It is right here. So I just went into quilting, download the quilting software. And here is where you have the option to download the software for either a Windows or Mac software. Okay, so Windows or Mac. And this is for your, like the computer desktop, right? So we want to make sure that you're choosing the proper one. And Meredith, we are getting some great questions. I'm not seeing all of them, so I'm going to let you kind of make sure I remember all of them when we go back. But also here is for tablets. So one of the beautiful things about the quilting software is it is available for either Android or iOS. So, you know, the Apple tablets. So this is really great. Make sure that you're looking at the requirements for both the software as well as for the desktop as well as the tablets. All right, everybody. So I just wanted to make sure you knew where to go to get your software. So that's great. But the Quilting Studio here, when I click on Quilting Studio, this has a lot of great inspiration. You know, the quilt behind me that Emily made, this was made by one of our colleagues in Sweden, Karina, you know, really great things. But these 4 little pieces here on designing your quilt, cutting out the patches, sewing the quilt, and then this little 9-patch star, which is a great starting quilt. All this information is here. If you click on cutting out the patches, so again, I'm going to do this because I want to make sure you all remember quilting, Quilting Studio, and then cutting out the patches. This is where it's going to show you a lot of different things and yardage calculations, that sort of stuff. But this is the part that I think is super important for you all is here's if you are working in inches, we are used to, as quilters, right? We're really used to seeing fractions, whereas the software today is working with, instead of fractions, instead of the true fractions like this, it's working with decimals. So let's say I have a example of the yardage here. It's 6.86 inches. 8.6 is within this area. 0.86 is within this area. And so you would cut this 6 7/8 inches, right? This little chart, I would print it, I would laminate it or put it in something and have it next to me as we go along. So I just want you to kind of know that is where you find this and to make sure you remember where that is. All right. So, and then just real quick, in like the studio, there are lots of projects. In the crafting, again, this is where you find the crafting software, lots of great information. Not going to take a lot of time because we're going to run out of time, but I do want to wanted to show you that. So let's, there was a question about a best way to clean the mats is where I kind of left off. Meredith or Carly, I mean.
I actually just talked to one of our product managers about this. They said use water with light dish soap. Don't scrub it hard, but just gently. I thought it was funny. They said massage the mats and make sure you like dry with damp cloth. But they also recommended after you're done cutting, maybe use a lint roller or something to just get an extra soft fabric that sits on it. And make sure you always put the plastic. These have little plastic coverings that you can put back on.
Yeah. I use baby wipes, like unscented baby wipes, to like get all of that off of there and then let it air dry, and that sticky comes back and it's good to go.
Great. Yeah. If you update your software, will it update all, like, actually today, the crafting and the quilting softwares are separate from the embroidery software. So at this point, you would have to update them separately. All right. So you do want to update those separately. Jane asked about, can we use the super designs to create cut files? You would, as long as you can get an SVG file, depending upon what design you're working with. If it has an SVG file, then you can work with that. And Meredith's going to talk about that next week a little bit. So, so the answer is yes, as long as you have that SVG file, Jane. So, so Linda asked, please jump in, Carly and Meredith, because I think I'm hearing myself talk too much. But Linda asked about curves as far as applique for the fabric. Have you guys had any experience with that?
Yes, I was actually just looking around because I think all of my stuff that I have like an applique on is in my other, on the other side of the wall in my other sewing room. But yes, you can cut out any type of shape. It depends on how small or how big it is, because like if you think of a bunny with the ears, and in between the ears, it's a really small space. Keep that in mind too, because you are using a rotary blade, where it's not like if you were doing it with heat transfer vinyl or just normal sticky vinyl, it has that little blade and it can easily move. But with the rotary blade, because it's a little bit bigger, you want to be mindful of how small your intricate shape cuts are. It's great with different, right angles and squares and triangles and hexagons and things. But when you get into that intricate, it can do it, but just caution you on the size that you do. Try it and practice it and see what works best.
Yeah. And Roxanne was asking about having problems with the fabric sticking. As long as you keep your mat nice and clean, like we were just talking about, the stickiness lasts quite a while, and you can flip your mat from top to bottom. You can turn it around like that. That's for sure.
You can, with an exception. So with the 12, because I have this asked often, Soni, with the 12 by 24, you can flip it, either way. With the 24 by 24, Carly, will you hold up that 24 by 24 mat for me? I'm going to make you big here for a second so they can see. So you can notice, you see at the bottom, it's got a thicker band, and at the top, where her fingers are, she'll drop it down here in a second. At the top, it has a thicker band. That one of those two ends has to be in the machine first. The two sides, the left and right, you'll notice that those are a little bit more narrow. Those have to be your side pieces. So you can flip your mat, but just be conscious of which end you're putting in first.
That's great. Thank you, Meredith. That's wonderful. I do hope they consider making it all compatible with other cutting machines. I know that they're always looking for updates. So right now we certainly are, working with all of these comments. I know that the people who work with the software are watching, so they're seeing all your comments, that sort of stuff. So for sure, we will certainly do all of this. So I think, Carly, Meredith, anything else? I mean, I think we've got most of the questions. Jacqueline's asking about, launching new tutorials. We're always trying to get stuff out. It's just everyone, I think, everybody's time is, we have 24 hours in a day. So it's like, how do we get everything done, right? But we appreciate everybody coming on. And I hope you can do multiple cuts of one block on a mat. You can certainly do that. So, but I hope you guys enjoyed today. It was fun, Meredith and Carly, having both of you here. I hope you liked this sort of, please let us know, if you liked, having us all three together, because sometimes I think it's more fun for us, although I talked a lot.
It is. No, it's more fun, definitely, to have those people to talk to. So,
all right. Okay, everyone. Well, thank you very much. And next week, Meredith is going to be doing another set of mySewnet camp, basically, right?
Yes. So on March 11th, 12th, and 13th at 2 or 3 Eastern, 12 Pacific on the mySewnet channel on Facebook or YouTube. On the first day, I'm going to go through creating SVG files in Draw and Paint and sending them to the crafting software. I've done this a little bit in the past, but I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into that. On day 2, I'm going to go through creating your own custom quilt blocks and sending that to Momento. And then day 3, I'm going to sort of go through again what we did today, but play a little bit more, go a little bit more in depth, and using the quilting software to then send over. So again, like I said, if you haven't downloaded the new version of the software, play with it this weekend, write those questions down, come with those questions next week, and then I will get those answered for you guys. So again, we appreciate you joining us today, and we hope you enjoyed it. And these will be up here. Feel free to type in any comments. We're checking them periodically over the next week or so. So feel free to add in any comments if you're watching this at a later time also. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. We'll see ya. Bye.